900, that's awesome. Matt, can you enable the chat for everyone?
Yes, I will. Forgot about that. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Activity Strong Executive Edition webinar. My name is Meg Laporte. I am a member of the Link Senior Marketing Team. For today's webinar, we are providing one free NAB, NCAP, NCCDP, NCTRC, and NZSRDT CEU credit. To be eligible for the CEU credit, you need to remain on the webinar for the full hour. At the end of the webinar, I will provide a post-webinar CEU survey evaluation link in the chat room, and it will also be sent to you by email this afternoon, so please check your spam folders for that. The survey must be completed by midnight Eastern Time this Thursday. If you have any questions, please email us at webinars@linksenior.com. CEU certificates will be issued by email before the end of the day on Friday. And take it away, Charles.
Thanks a lot, Meg. Happy New Year, everyone. Yeah, Happy New Year. Wishing you peace and clarity in 2024. Like Meg mentioned, my name is Charles Vilmoen, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Link Senior. I love doing these. I think it's the fourth or fifth that I do to get us started for the year. So today's webinar is going to be the state of res engagement, obviously in 2024, and sharing with you a few thoughts about how we see engagement progressing in senior living. There's a lot of progress, a lot of good things happening, challenges as well, but also a lot of things that are exciting. Couple of things before we get started is Activity Strong, as some of you might be aware, is an initiative that Link Senior started to acknowledge the amazing work of activities and life enrichment professionals. So I do want to kind of pause and really all of you that work in this particular department, congratulations for the work that you do. Thank you for the work that you do. I'm biased because I'm also an activity professional, but I would say that activities is essential. Senior living, our industry would not exist without all of you. So thank you for the work that you do. This is an executive edition where we take the topic of activities and life enrichment and elevate it, where we make it consumable, or we attract different position within senior living. So I know that some of you have an administrator, an executive director, a nursing title. Thank you all for joining. Obviously, activities is led by one department, but we believe it's a whole community, a whole team effort. So thank you for doing that. Activity Strong also would not be possible without our partners, and these include Activity Connection, NAP, and NCAP. And so I'm going to get started. Before I do that, I know, and you probably realize that the chat gets really busy. There is a setting, just make sure you select everyone so that everyone can see your contribution. And then I'll try to pick up questions as I go. If you want your questions answered, the best way to do that is probably to use the Q&A feature. And I have a lot of exciting things to share with you. I try to make it as meaningful as possible. The slides will be made available, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out either during the webinar or afterwards. Love to have conversations with any of you. Before we get into the actual program, there's a couple quote-unquote updates or things or announcements that I wanted to share. And the first one being that, sorry, let me get this going here. I wanted to congratulate our partner, Activity Connection. They announced a week ago, I don't know if you saw this on social media, that they were celebrating 25 years of services. And I remember when I got connected with Nancy and Bob Ewald of Activity Connection years ago as I started Link Senior. And some of you might know them. the whole team is amazing. The product is amazing. The value they're providing our industry is amazing. And I just want to pause and encourage you to congratulate them on 25 years of services. So congratulations to Activity Connection, hoping to the next 25 more coming years. And thank you for all you do for our industry. And yeah, I love Activity Connection as well. So that's one quick announcement about a partner of ours. The other announcement I wanted to do is less of a celebration, more of a just kind of a news. You might have seen this. It happened last year. And that is that the quote unquote godmother of person-centered care passed away. And her name, if some of you might know her name is Naomi File. She's the one that developed years ago something that you all might be familiar with called the validation method. And I serve on the board of the Validation Training Institute. And so obviously, I felt compelled to share this news with you. She has made an amazing video with her daughter, Vicky, who's the executive director of VTI. And I really encourage all of you to consider watching that video. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to validation, you can also Google Gladys with a Y, Gladys validation. There's an amazing video that for me resembles all what is perfect dementia care, where we see Naomi File engaging someone through the use of music. And if you have any question about VTI, it's an education organization that really spreads the message and the tools and methods developed by Naomi. And as you probably realized before, I had another announcement that I forgot regarding one of our partners, NAP. And that is that they have the annual conference, which is always an amazing conference. They're back in Minnesota, and that's in April. And I don't know if you've considered it. If you haven't, please do. It's always a great a conference with amazing education and also great opportunities to network with other professionals. So these are the quick announcements. In terms of background on who I am, just very quickly, my name is, like I mentioned already, Charles, obviously. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Link Senior. I think what's important about what our passion are is we believe that old people are cool. And so we started a big initiative about this years ago, just on the fact that we're not a fan of segregation based on age. We think that everyone is cool. There's actually a website. You can Google old people are cool. You can buy swag. My kids have a t-shirt that say old people are cool. And it's all about celebrating age and aging. And then the other one, obviously, which is why we're here, is Activity Strong, which is all about supporting what we believe to be essential in senior living. So these are initiatives that at Link Senior we're very proud of. We're very value-driven. And so if you have any question about what is Link Senior, very briefly, we work with organizations like yours, so senior living, so anything that looks like assisted living, personal care, memory care, and long-term care. And we basically help these organizations deliver on that promise of engagement. So we partner with the teams to make sure the teams do what they love, which is to engage any residents, regardless of where the person is or what their preferences are. So obviously we have a technology component, but we also offer a lot of education. And in the end, it's all about that quote unquote human touch. We're proud of the fact that we partner with amazing organization individuals. You might be familiar with some of them, but it's all about elevating, again, engagement in our industry. And we're proud of the fact that we're evidence-based. And if any one of you has any questions, please feel free to reach out. So that's a little bit about the, I wanted to say short. It was 9 minutes. It was longer than usual, but we had these announcements. So for our presentation today, what we thought about doing, a little bit like we did last year, we wanted to frame the discussion with in an introduction of where we see things, and then delve directly into what we see as the current state of resident engagement. So I don't know if some of you attended the one that we did last year, but we have a lot of data, and I'll explain where we get the data and what it means. but we have a very data-driven approach on where is resident engagement for senior living. Part of it is also really identifying the challenges. And just to be clear, we're not here to complain about the challenges, we're here to address them, right? So that's very important. So I will go through things that limit us, but please understand it's all in the idea of, one, identifying them, and then two, helping you think about how you can address them. And then obviously we have this ultimate goal, which is this notion of social prescription. And if you're not aware of what that means, obviously we'll go through a short description. But again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions about that. So where do we start? We start with, obviously what we feel is so important is, what is engagement? And there's this concept that was brought to me by Dr. Rob Winningham years ago. There's this book, you can buy it on Amazon, pretty, very interesting, called Live Long, Die Short. But essentially, it's this analysis of the course of aging. And so, the nutshell of this notion is that all of us, or most of us human beings, we reach our maximum, quote unquote, functioning level around the age of 23, right? 23 years old on average here. And then what happens is that a lot of us are kind of, flat in terms of function level. And then around the age of 50 years old, most of us are going to engage in a gradual journey where in terms of function level, we kind of decline, and that's usual aging. And this book, this analysis, analyzed the fact that 5% of us stay high. We might have an event like we break a hip or we lose a loved one, but we have this built-in resiliency where we bounce back, and then we continue living. And then at one point, we kind of just die, like we just die. And the notion of this, and we all know this in activities, but the notion of this parallel was to understand, why are there these different trajectory, these tracks? And the book and the analysis and the research actually shows that these 5% of people, it's not because of their genetic background, it's nothing that they inherited, it's all about lifestyle. It is all about wellness. And so these are things like, say, staying socially active, physically active, cognitively stimulated. And the reason I explain all of that is that that's kind of what we do in activities, right? That's kind of what we do in life enrichment. And most of us, almost all of us human beings, would rather, yes, I see Laurie saying it's a MacArthur study, that's correct. All of us want to age like that, right? And I think I always like to frame some discussions using this, because it explains that every human being has this notion of agency. We can choose to live a certain way. And what it means for activities is that we in activities have, sometimes almost limitless power in terms of the well-being we can bring to our elders, to our residents, right? And so there's this notion that wellness just obviously works, but when we help people, we can really help dramatically within a few days or a few weeks of them moving in, improve, increase the level of well-being. In terms of setting, this discussion also, I think it's also important to remember, if you've heard me say the words essential or important and so on, but activities is truly, in the end, about enabling a basic human right. And I know that some of us in activities don't feel like we're dignified enough, we're not respected enough, and that's unfortunate. But, if you want to hear it from me, and I hope I'm not the first one to tell you, but what you do every day by showing up at work is you are enabling your residents to find meaning and purpose. And that is a basic human right. So your work is essential, is extremely important. The other notion that I love to share is we get the question sometimes, what is engagement? And I think there's something very important to understand is that in supportive living, so maybe less independent living, but more, like assisted living, personal care, memory care, or the nursing home environment, this notion of engagement is really collaborating with our residents so they get connected to what they like and love and find meaning is with. So it's really this notion of listening to their voice and really partnering with them. Sometimes we might feel that it's difficult, right? And I, I've started to do that more and more when we have conversation, and we have Dr. Rob Winningham. Thank you, Rob, for being here. That's an honor to have you. Sometimes I also like to frame the discussion about what do we do in senior living, and what is the quote unquote marketing promise, right? So I have a little bit of background in marketing, and it's unfortunate sometimes that when we look at the website of a senior living community, we kind of promise our residents that, hey, move here, you'll find the best engagement every day. It's going to be highly personalized, highly therapeutic. And don't get me wrong, it does happen sometime, but sometimes it doesn't. And so that disconnect, right, between what is promised to our family members, what is promised to our residents, and what happens, that is the gap of opportunity. That is the gap of good things that we can bring in our day-to-day work. And sometimes that gap is big, unfortunately, or sometimes that gap is less work. But there is often a gap, right? And so sometimes it can feel, when we work in activities and life enrichment, it can feel a little bit like we have this great desire to really fix every single problem we see in our community, and we have great intentions, right? And we're really driven by this engagement, right? This spark we can provide in the eyes of our residents. But unfortunately, sometimes because of different reasons, activities feels a little bit different. It's a little chaotic, right? Where it's really difficult to know what to do next. It's really difficult to have access to data, or have access to all the tools we need to engage our residents. And so sometimes when I speak to activities and life enrichment, most of the quote unquote burnout comes from that. It comes from, again, going back in my slides, it comes back from this high expectations we have from our clients. And sometimes we have this expectation from our EDs, our marketing teams, and so on. But then when we turn around, we realize that our work is really difficult. And you're not alone, right? Most of the industry is like this. Most of the industry thus far, unfortunately, has not given enough resources, not given us enough tools to really do the work we want to do now. Obviously, and I'll show that in some of the data that I have, we're seeing great progress, but it's still a very difficult task. And the NCAP, one of our partners years ago, had shared with me this CDC report that dates, right? It's 8 years old, but we haven't found any standards out there by a government agency. So we still kind of show this, which is that in skilled nursing facility, that's SNF, residents were provided 11 minutes of engagement per day. And in assisted living, AL, 20 minutes. Now, what we've seen on data is that has progressed, that has improved, but still there's a big gap when it comes to that disconnect I was highlighting. And then the other thought when we consider these standards, is obviously there's this notion of quantity, which obviously that is not enough. I don't think that any one of you, more than 500 people online now, will be happy with even just 20 minutes of being connected to what you love. But I remember when I went through my MEPAP 1 certification, I remember one of the instructors saying, we need to progress beyond the quote unquote the 3 Bs, bingo and Bible and birthdays. And don't get me wrong, I like them all, they're great, but it's never going to be representative of the preferences of all of our residents. So there's this notion again of both quantity and quality that we need to address. And there's definitely ways to do that. We see organizations doing an amazing job, especially starting 2022, 2023 was a good year. And 2024, we see a lot of exciting things happening. I think that none of us need too much discussion about the bad impact of social isolation. Like Planet Earth got this big lesson about it through the pandemic. But I would say that it's still happening, unfortunately. And obviously, activities and life enrichment is the one tool to improve that. The other thing I would say is that a lot of the discussions we've been having, especially last year and forward, is beyond social isolation, this notion of building better products, better senior living products, whether it's a signature program or just the experience we're providing to our residents. So hopefully this is kind of level setting. The one notion, and I had discussed this with some people that I recognize on the chat here, is, and I think we'll share this, I think the slides we'll share with you, but is this notion of how we spend our times, and there's a lot of very interesting data. I particularly love that report here. It is, here as you can see, it's how Americans spend their time throughout their life. And I'll let you delve into what that means for you, about your loved one and your family members and so on. But the main point I wanted to make is that being alone is something that we all are going to face, right? We're all going to face more loneliness when we age than when we're younger. And I think that the big learning experience that we've had is that the one aspect that really matters is whether it's a choice or not, right? So sometimes, individuals are very happy to be alone, and that's great. That's a choice. It should be respected that way. But if it's not chosen, that's when the negative impact on health are seen. So, so again, I'll let you kind of go further in seeing what that means for you. I have a few siblings, so it was interesting to see for me like what that meant and so on. I have 4 kids, obviously, so that was also interesting. But in terms of what we do, I think the most important part in senior living is really focusing on that social connection, obviously, and then whether it's a choice or not. So in terms of, that was kind of the introduction to level set, where we were going to talk about where we stand today. So just before I go into sharing these data and these updates, I just want to share a little bit about how we got that data. So if some of you have been on our Activity Strong webinars before, you might notice that at the end we do surveys. And thank you for the ones that filled these. They're very important to us because we love to share and educate the industry. And so we collect a lot of information every 2 weeks on where the industry is and so on and so forth. That's number one. The second one is, obviously, we actively all the time look at research. There's a lot of amazing research that's coming up in terms of the progress, in terms of engagement and dementia care. And obviously, we at Link Senior, through the use of our product and the partnerships we have, we also have access to really cool data when it comes to engagement. And so that's kind of where the data comes from. And then the acronyms we use, I'm sure that some of you are familiar with them. AL is assisted living, MC is memory care, and skilled is the long-term care, skilled nursing facility. So let me kind of delve into that a little bit. And before I do that, before I go into very specific things, I get sometimes asked, where is our industry and where we see things headed. And here I share 2 articles that I feel are kind of a good snapshot of where we stand. There's this notion that I started to hear mid last year, which is Thrive in 2025. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to sound negative about 2024. There's a lot of progress, right? A lot of good things are happening in 2024. But without going into too much details, there are still relatively large challenges for our industry when it comes to staffing, which I'm sure you've all experienced to some level. And then there's also a notion about debt and some operators out there being exposed to their ability to reimburse that. So without getting too much technical, there are improvements from 2023 to 2024 for sure. But the year where the industry or these publications believed there was going to be a lot of progress, acceleration of progress, is going to be early 2025. So what does that mean for us as when we stand early in 2024? Well, again, the situation is not as bad as it was 2 years ago or certainly 3 years ago. But I think a lot of what we should be doing today is actually preparing for that, right? And that's why one of the wishes that I have for us as a discipline, as an industry, is clarity and just focusing on what works, what we know works. And so hopefully this is helpful. Again, we're sharing these articles for you to consider and read further. When it comes to engagement itself, again, without getting too technical in the use of our product, what we consider engagement obviously is active engagement, or as defined by the organizations that we partner with. And so we're excited to kind of report the fact that from 2022 to 2023, there has been an increase of 20% of minutes of resident engagement per day, right? So right now, as we close the year for 2023, we've seen that on average, communities delivered a whopping 29 minutes per resident per day. Is that enough? No, it's not enough for sure. But I can tell you that these organizations are doing dramatically better than many, many others. The other quick notion that I want to share about these data points is you'll notice kind of this ebbing and flowing. We always see a little bit of seasonality in our data. And when we interview organizations, the main limiting factor is staffing, right? And data shows that it's higher in skilled than it's in assisted living, than it is in memory care. So memory care for us is very understandable because memory care, as you know, is all about these short bursts of engagement. It's less about, hey, let's have a 45-minute long program. A lot of our memory care engagement is ad hoc, one-on-ones, room visits, and so on and so on. And then the reason why we see more in skilled is there's different reasons for that. There's the use of more group programs, and sometimes skilled uses better data, so they tend to be more proactive. And I'll show what that means in a couple of slides. So that's one aspect that we were excited to report on. The second one, when it comes to data, which I found really intriguing, is this notion of contacts per day, right? So, going back to the point we were making about the website and what we're promising our clients, right, our families, our residents, you would expect that we're engaging our residents once a day, at least, right? But it's not the case, unfortunately, right? And there's a lot of reason. Some of it is staffing. Some of it is also just we don't know what to do next. So the use of data and tracking attendance is really important. But the good thing is that there's been a huge increase. So 33%, we were shocked to see such a big increase, and that's great. Our goal is obviously one or more. And so we believe that things are trending that we'll probably achieve that in 2024, which is exciting. But again, that's a gap that we definitely want to be addressing, an opportunity that we want to address. The other one, and that's the last one, I think, is that's my favorite one, is decline ratios. And part of it is, when we work in programming, we, again, create programs and then we offer these programs to our residents. And so sometimes these residents accept, or sometimes they quote unquote decline. And I know that us human beings, sometimes we don't want to feel rejected or we don't want things to be refused, but it's very healthy to have some level of decline ratios. And if you want, I can share a story. When COVID unfolded and we had these different waves of the pandemic, we saw decline ratios fall to zeros for weeks on. And we were really scratching our head trying to understand why. Why is it zero? And so we interviewed clients, and it turns out that residents had so little programs that they would just take anything, right? And so there was no decline ratios because residents were really hungry for that connection. And so what that taught us is that declining is healthy because it's the voice of the residents, right? And there's many different reasons why we might decline something. It could be because the timing is not right. It could be because we have a family member that's visiting. It could also be because our preferences have changed. And so a decline ratio is just a feedback mechanism that we in activity should take on. Now, we saw a big increase. Last year, we were recommending around 20%. And as you can see in 2023, we exceeded that. And I think that 31% is high, maybe a little bit too high. When we interview teams and some of our clients, it feels a little bit like because they don't have enough staff, they don't have enough time to put in quality programs. So the main feedback they get is again about quality. So hopefully, if things continue to progress like we see, as you can see, it started to decline at the end of the year. Hopefully in 2024, we'll probably see that stabilize around 20%. We believe 20% is a rather healthy decline ratio. So hopefully this is interesting to you. From my perspective, I have these different soapboxes. One of them is tracking attendance, because sometimes we still speak to organizations where they feel they should not track attendance because it's a compliance thing or they don't have to, and so on. I can tell you that the organizations that we work with have so much success just understanding what it is that they do to not only get credit for the work that we do in activities, but also be able to partner with our clinical team, our marketing team, our family members, and so on. So hopefully this is helpful. Again, like I mentioned, we will be sharing this report to you all shortly, and hopefully it helps you wonder about how you could potentially improve. So that's where we stand today. I'm going to get into the second section here, which is about the challenges. And again, please understand, it's not about complaining. It's about identifying what is blocking us to then improve. And so the first one, and there's been improvement since last year. There were so many slides I didn't incorporate. We didn't incorporate the data from last year, but it is available. But essentially, the main limiting factors, like I mentioned, is around staffing and also getting help from other departments. So one question that we asked, we had, I think, more than 300 organizations answer that survey. Are you consistently getting help from other departments? So now we stand at 56%, which is great. It's a good number. I think last year was under 50%. But we still have 44% of you all, of organizations that are not getting help. And and I feel for you. I just, my wife is a teacher, and she always tells me when I talk about this, she goes, I don't know how they do it. Like it's not healthy that we're not delivering on what we should be doing. So if any one of you feels like that, just know that you're not alone, but that there's been progress. One also thing that we've seen improve is also how frequently does, again, the life enrichment or the activity professional partner with sales and marketing. And again, we could do a whole webinar, and we have done that on that particular topic. But I think sometimes we like to ask the question because it tells us what's the culture of the organization, right? I believe that senior living is a great product, and the more there's activities in it, the better product it is. And smart marketing and sales team know that. And that partnership is more about helping understand the type of organization we have, the type of community we have. And then the partnership could be about partnering with a tour, or when we speak to our existing family, like what's the level of satisfaction? And then when we have data about activities and attendance, just reporting on that great engagement that we're providing to our residents. So again, there's been improvement, but I would recommend, if you just want to have a guideline, we should be meeting weekly, or at least having a quick discussion, either led by the ED or the administrator, but at least on a weekly basis, there should be a connection with sales and marketing, right? We can't be just one department working in our corner. And I know that many of us don't decide that, but the more collaboration there is, the better. And that idea of collaboration is also extremely important when we talk about, like I mentioned, satisfaction, right? So the key person here who's going to want to hear that is your administrator or ED. And I'm sure you all know that satisfaction is often, it helps in two ways. There's this notion of what's called the back door, like people moving out because they're dissatisfied, right? So that doesn't help occupancy, so it doesn't help the business. So your ED or your administrator is going to be really interested in that. But satisfaction is also the main driver for referral. When you have a happy family member, the first thing they do is they they tell their friends, their family members about the great experience you're providing to their loved one. So as you can see here, there's still a lot of potential opportunities, right? Like a third of us only connect monthly on that, and again, weekly is a good goal. The other one, and that is really kind of quote unquote dear and near to my heart, being such a quote unquote dementia nerd, is this notion of activities needs to be elevated at the same level as clinical. And it's not that clinical needs to be brought down. Clinical is essential, but we need to drive the importance for that true collaboration. And one aspect for us that is usually the quote unquote the litmus test is when we ask an organization, does your activity department partner when we think about behavior expression, right? Like people living with cognitive change in memory support, does activities work with care and clinical on that aspect? And that's a great progress that we've seen. I think that last year was in the less than 60%. So that's a very good improvement there. So hopefully this is helpful for you to kind of understand what the industry is and then kind of act on it. Again, just a conversation, right? You can submit this to your team and say, hey, I learned this, I know that, and then invite your organization to consider these. On to the other part, which is just what do we have in terms of tools, right? So again, I'm not going to dwell too much in the attendance tracking, but I would say that we've seen great progress in the last 3 years in tracking attendance, right? So 55% is huge improvement, but paper is limiting, I would say. The good thing with paper is that it shows that there's a process, but obviously it's very difficult to analyze data from paper and you can't share it. And so there's little insights you can get. So if you're not tracking, please, I'll invite you, one challenge for you and your team to consider is tracking attendance, regardless of how you do it. Please do it one way or the other. That's my challenge to the ones that are not doing it. And the ones that are using paper, there are many tools. Some of them are extremely, quote unquote, cheap, not expensive. There are great tools out there. Obviously, I'll brag a little bit. Link Senior has a good one, but there are many, many different tools. So it's not like 6 or 7 years ago where, there weren't many tools out there. Now there are a lot. And, please consider that as an initiative. I always say, what you measure gets managed. And so if you want to think about managing engagement, you have to track it. You have to measure it one way or the other. And then the other notion, and this is quote unquote part two of the challenge that I had for you all, is to think about the process you have about knowing your residents. And I know that all of you, or some of you might be familiar, like when a resident moves in, we have this intake process. Sometimes it starts with marketing, but we want to know our residents, right? We want to know who they are, what their preferences are, and so on and so forth. Like, are they French? Are they, I'm French. If ever I move into one of your communities, I hope that we'll have a little bit of a French learning or French discussion and so on. But these data points is what is going to be used to listen to the voice of your residents, right? And we asked the question a couple of weeks ago, and so it's great to see that there are dedicated tools. It's great to see that we're using it in the EHR, like prompt care or matrix care. But many of us, I think 26% was nothing, or something that was not dedicated, or paper, again, is not sufficient. So that's part two of the challenge that we have for you all, is to consider how can you improve that process, right? And again, there are many inexpensive tools out there, but please consider the fact that, even if you have 20 residents or more, you can't know everything by heart about all of your residents. And so I know that sometimes, I speak to professionals, they go, oh, I know my residents and so on. And I go, great, you know your residents, but you're not here 24/7. I don't think so, right? Like you go away at night or on the weekend. And so the notion of having a process, like extending engagement beyond yourself, is what truly makes a senior living community engaging. And the notion again is preference changes also. So that's a great way to capture that. Going into the next part is, we often get the question, which is, I know I want to do better engagement. I know I want to improve, but I don't know how to start. And so if you speak to a very experienced activity professional or to a rec therapist, usually they'll be pretty good at analyzing what's happening. And so, I say it's simple. It is very simple. Activities is all about a simple process, and simple in this way is good, right? Which is that we want to know our residents, we want to plan programs, right? So we can't plan unless we know our residents. And then once we've planned, we want to engage our residents and we want to evaluate. And again, tooting, like just kind of highlighting the importance of understanding residents and evaluating our work through tracking attendance. If you want to improve anything in your department or your organization, like in 2024, think about these different steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, like how good are we about these? And often there's going to be a way of saying, oh, well, this part of the process can be improved. What we saw when we interviewed, I think it was almost 700 organization, we saw that the biggest area of improvement was, again, the assessment part, getting to know residents, right? By far, this is where our industry, and again, I'm not complaining, but highlighting something important, this is where our industry, quote unquote, fails life enrichment, quote unquote, which is that, we have these amazing professionals that work in our department, but they don't have tools or processes to really understand the residents, the population, the elders they serve. So again, if you don't know where to start, just start with the beginning, which is the assessment, understanding, simple question is, have I interviewed all my residents? Do I know, 10, 15, or do I have access to 10, 15, 20 preferences of my residents? And does my team also have access to that? So hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully that resonates a little bit with you. So that was the second part, which is kind of understanding the challenges where are the opportunities? Now, I want to kind of shift the discussion. This hour is going very fast. I hope this is helpful for you. But going forward, what we see as the future, and some of you might know, like we're big in promoting this idea of social prescription. And so I'll explain a little bit of that, and I'll explain what can be done today to kind of take steps towards that. So you can Google this, you can research it. Social prescription, in essence, is a little bit like person-directed living. It's a little bit like person-centered care. But it's this notion of when we elevate engagement to the same level as clinical, then we all, quote unquote, win. And I'll share with you different examples. Like, in Japan, a doctor can prescribe walk in the forests for you. In Canada, here, last year, a doctor, if you suffer depression, can write you an order for an annual pass to the national parks and services, right? And it kind of makes sense, right? We know that, sorry, I'm forgetting the term. I mean, walking in the outdoor helps. I think it's called the green pill. Yeah, the green pill. And so it's this notion of being exposed to nature helps. And there are amazing programs that you can include today to have that happen. One of them is called Elder Grow. We had somebody by the name of Michelle Olson talk about that particular topic, but there are easy ways for you to kind of implement and operationalize that. But what it also means in terms of future is, these things are sometimes as good as medication. So everyone would win should we include more activities, more engagement as the first modality, right? And to give you another example, we all know how great music works, right? Music works until the very late stage of a dementia journey, even in life. Other examples that were shared recently on social media was this notion of prescribing fun, again in Canada. But just so you know, this also happens in Europe quite a lot. And then one of my all-time favorite was, again, last year, a doctor actually prescribed puppies. And again, that person, the quote-unquote patient, was living with a little bit of depression. And I just love the fact that, and if you look it up on, I think it's on Twitter, this followed up conversation where it actually helped and the quote-unquote prescription was successful. So that's kind of the future. Now, that's where we're headed. How do we bring that future closer to us, right? How do we take systematic steps towards that? Because wouldn't it be a great world if this would implemented where activities collaborated with the rest of our organization to truly enable person-directed living like we have it on our website? And so just a few thoughts about this. One is we did a lot of data analysis based on what we see with our data and research. And this is all listed on our website. But one is obviously staffing. Now, I understand this probably not falling in the right kind of timing given the staffing crisis of our industry. And some organization that we work with, they look at this and they go, oh, well, we're nowhere there. The main point is that that's the goal, right? So we need to take we need to take steps towards that goal. Sometimes I get the question, well, what counts towards these FTEs? And that could be even other departments helping, right? So just to be clear, it's not only one full-time person. It could be help from other departments. The other recommendation we have is please consider technology. Obviously, I'm biased. I am with Link Senior. We provide technology, but understand that there are many technology solutions out there. The reason I say technology works is that it actually just works. We've shown this over and over with a clinical study. And this is a very large study that we did in 2020 with over 700 organizations. And simply it shows that when we use an electronic tool for preference data, you are twice more likely to create individual plans. So what that means is that we are twice more successful at driving person-directed living, right? Again, the promise on our website, we're twice more likely to deliver on that. We're more likely to build communities and groups. And for you, or from your perspective, it also feels good to know that your residents are engaged in real time and engaged on programs that match their preferences, right? That's really what drives us in programming and activities and life enrichment, is making sure residents are connected to what they love. So that's the little spiel about technology. Again, many solutions out there. When it comes to benchmarks, I told you about how do you take a step, how do you quote unquote bring that future forward. I want you to consider what's called a KPI, like a key performance index. Going back to what I was sharing at the beginning of the webinar about MRD, minutes of resident engagement per day, we believe that a good goal should be around 35 minutes. Is that enough? No, but we want to get at least to that on a system level, right? A whole community or an enterprise level. We want to be engaging at least 85% of our residents. And so I'm sure that some of you go, oh, we are 100%. Let me sometimes doubt that. We do have organizations that get to 100%, but it's really a lot of work. It really stems from the top, strong culture, strong operations, strong education, and it's difficult to maintain. And then the last KPI, the last indicator that we wanted to suggest, and this is a new recommendation that we have, is C equal 1. And you might be wondering what that means. It's this notion of contacting your residents at least once per day, right? And again, we know we're not there, but we are actively helping organizations operationalize that so that they can. And so again, 3 numbers to keep it simple: 85% of residents engaged, 35 minutes per day, at least once contact a day. So that's sorry, KPIs, again, how you direct your effort. And another thought, and I know we're almost at time, but another thought that I wanted to share with you is sometimes organizations think that they do an amazing job, and many of them do, don't get me wrong. And then sometimes we have a few questions, and then people understand that maybe there's different ways to improve. And years ago, I had this very high level COO from a very large organization saying, hey, Charles, can you break down to me in simple questions what I need to turn around and ask my teams, right? And so again, 100, I think he had 150 locations, and he was really trying to understand how he could improve. And so the 3 questions that we recommend in this case is, 1, are you engaging everyone? And do you know you're engaging everyone? And I know that for many of you, hopefully it sounds basic, but I know that for some of us it doesn't, just simply because we don't know. And so from an operational standpoint, again, important to know, are we engaging everyone? The second question, which is really what we love to do in activities and programming, is, are we driving person-directed living? So are all of the programmatic offering based on needs and preferences? And obviously the third one, because of our population, because of our industry, are we promoting well-being and positive outcomes? So I can tell you that by far, like most of the time when I share this, people go, yeah, of course, I know that. That's what I do. That's what I learned as an activity professional in rec therapy and so on. And yes, you did learn that. But the question is, it's not about you. It's about your organization. And there's a big difference, right? Can your organization answer these questions systematically? And that's where there's a lot of room and a lot of opportunities to improve. One of the key aspects to improve some of that is this notion of incorporating wellness. So that's another kind of, it could be a whole webinar about it. But I don't know if some of you are aware, there's this great organization called the International Council on Active Aging. They were actually the first ones to promote this notion of wellness. And some of you might have heard of, mind, body, spirit. It's a holistic approach to well-being. It's promoted by the World Health Organization across humanity. So for kids, for people our age, for elders. And so ICAA has done a lot of work in promoting that. And ICAA released recently a planning tool to help your organization understand, well, first of all, assess, and then understand how to improve. So again, we're a big fan of that type of work. We're a big fan of this notion of operationalizing wellness, because obviously there's wellness to be brought, but it just simplifies things if you have a tool that is so well regarded. Without getting into too much details, one of the benefits of that particular tool with ICA is that you can compare yourself. And sometimes organizations are like, yeah, we're doing great. And some of them are, don't get me wrong, but again, some of them, they can see differences. So hopefully this is helpful. And I thought I had one other slide. I didn't. One other thought before I close with a closing comment here. I was asked on Monday what's happening in 2024, and obviously I shared some of that. But what we see at Link Senior is there's definitely more and more organizations that are operationalizing these things, right? So when I say operationalizing, is again making sure we have processes and we're delivering on that. So wellness is a big component, but where there's a lot of opportunities is when wellness encounters dementia care, like memory support. And I think that that's where there's a lot of very cool opportunities for us in 2024 and beyond. So again, if you want, one invitation on our behalf is everything that you do today, if it's driven by clarity, you will gain. And so you as an individual, you have a great career in front of you. You as a department, you're going to grow, right? Because you're going to be seen as more important. You're going to get more resources. And you as an organization, you're going to be able to build a better product, more competitive, and again, deliver on your promise of person-directed living. So that's for you all. Now, my personal wish to you all is may the age be with you. And some of you might know we have these old people that are cool stickers, and we have this great thing where we want to fight ageism. But my wish to you is to have a fantastic, quote unquote, aging journey in 2024, because again, aging is beautiful. So thank you for that. Now, we have a couple more minutes where I want to shift a little bit in terms of announcements for upcoming events. And so here, these are my contacts. This is my cell phone. Feel free to text me or send me an email or call me. The QR code is a link to I think it's my LinkedIn profile. If you want to just swipe it and get connected. I post daily on everything that is activities, programming, dementia care, senior living, and all of that. And so would love to continue the conversation with you. So that's that. In terms of upcoming events, we're starting the year with a bang. And so I'm super excited where we're going to have an amazing leader in the field of memory care by the name of Jamie Johnson. And the title of the webinar is going to be Success and Lessons Learned from Resident Engagement Champion. And Jamie is going to be joined by Stacy Flint, who just very recently joined the Center for Applied Research in Dementia. She used to be with an amazing organization called Winsong Memory Care. So she is an operator. She knows about programs, but she joined the work of Dr. Cameron Camp. And just because Stacy is awesome, she sent me, and I received them yesterday, these Old People Are Cool gloves. And so Stacy's amazing, Jamie's amazing. Hopefully you'll get to join us on that particular day. That's for the 16th. The next webinar we have then on February 6th is a lesson in listening. And so Marvell Adams is a friend, a partner of Link Senior and Activity Strong. He speaks on many different topics, including DEI. And so he will come with learning lessons about listening. So that's for February 6th. And then we have a very large event that we're very excited about with the Validation Training Institute, again, the work of Naomi Fowle, in February. Now, let me tell you why that particular event is going to be so meaningful. We are building this event, obviously, with VTI, but also with an amazing organization called the National Council of Dementia Minds. And believe it or not, the first session that we're going to have is going to be with people living with cognitive change, people living with dementia like FTD and so on. And so we felt it was so important, given given the feedback that we get, to really incorporate the voice of our elders, the voice of our people living with dementia in the event. So please stay tuned. Please join us. And then the last thing I wanted to invite you to consider is, we've done this almost for 5 years, and so we're so excited to bring the fifth annual, believe it or not, it is the fifth annual Activities Strong Virtual Summit. I remember when I connected with Dawn of NCAP and Alyssa of NAP over the first summit. And so we're extremely excited again to partner with Activity Connection with NAP and NCAP. And so that that event is a longer event, as you can see here, and that's going to be held on June 25th. And so these are the announcements. The last thing, and that is really the last thing I'll share with you, is we are Link Senior stand committed to what you all do. And I don't know if you've realized, but we've been doing this for years now. And we love to give back. We love to support the industry. We love to empower you, activity and life enrichment professionals, to do what you love to do, which is to engage residents. And so if you go to our YouTube page, and you can just Google YouTube, Link Senior, or just find us that way, you probably realize, but we now have hundreds of free webinars that you can use to, you liked one, you want to go back to it, you want to explore a particular topic, you want to share something with your teams, please consider this as a free resource, and obviously forever free. So that's the last announcement. And with that, I again want to repeat how grateful I am for all of you to join me today in this conversation, and how grateful I am for the work that you do. And again, my wish to you all are peace and clarity for 2024. Thank you so much. Please tune into our upcoming events, and thank you for the work that you do. Bye-bye. All right.